Hello, my name is Jon Witt, and this is an introduction of using a band in terms of helping you and strengthen your shoulders and articulate your shoulders. So if you've had some shoulder pain before, a TheraBand is a very good, useful tool to help strengthen the rotators of the shoulders, and it'll help aid in the range of motion within your shoulders. So you could use any band. You don't necessarily need to use a band that I have. A lighter band is probably better to start with, and I always use a light band for all these exercises. I mean, you could use a heavier band, but with a heavier band, I would just use a static hold. I wouldn't move in a range of motion because it's probably too strong, and it puts your shoulder at risk. So just really some basic motions is that I take the band and I'm going to bring it out in front of my chest, and then I'm just going to stretch the band out to the sides, and this will help broaden the shoulders, the chest. It'll help spread out the scapula. So in just starting out, I like a static hold, and this could be for 5-10 seconds. As you like a static hold, it could certainly be longer, and then I'm just going to bring it in, and I'm just going to bring it down. So I'm going to repeat that just about 5 times, but when I do it, before I do a handstand or something like that, I'll do it, all these different positions I'll do about 10 times. So again, I'm just taking the band out in front of me, and then I'm pulling it apart. And if you find that it's too strong, you can get a lighter band. I could, just as an example, if I have a band that's a circular, I can just use one side of it, which is going to make the band not as strong. But like I said, I'm moving the arms out laterally to open up the chest, the shoulders, and then I'm moving them back in. Really basic, but very good for the shoulders. And then I'm going to bring the arms down. I'm going to take the arms up into an overhead position. So if you had a tear in your shoulder, the first position is probably going to be better. And I'll show you some other exercises. So I'm taking it up overhead just to give you a broader scope, is that I'm just up in an extension, and I'm raising my scapula up towards the band, towards the hands, and then I'm going to take it out to the side and out into this wide position again. So it'll teach the shoulders how to move through space, the shoulder blades. So then I'm taking the band up overhead. I could reach up, shoulders up towards the ears, and then I'm taking the band down and out to the sides again. I'm going to bring it back up. And then if you find an angle, which I really like, is finding different angles, you could hold those angles. So if you're new to the band, it doesn't have to be a full range of motion, but in moving it up and moving it out will help condition the shoulders better. You're going to get stronger in moving in and out of positions. So when I'm out, there's tension. When I'm up, there's less tension. Just for a few seconds, I'm lifting my shoulders up towards my ears, and then I'm taking the band forward and down. So I'm going to do some scapula retraction and protraction. You could use the band, you don't have to, but I'm shoulder distance apart with the hands. And what I'm doing is I'm broadening my shoulders. So my shoulder blades are moving apart, similar to what we were doing. So if I'm pulling the band apart, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to round through the upper back, and then I'll bring that down. So for this, it's just a static hold initially. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to retract the shoulders, just so that you know the difference, because often people won't necessarily know the difference. So shoulder blades are moving in, is shoulder retraction, and then I'm going to take the arms back down. I'm going to do a combination of the both. So I'm going to push around my shoulders, and then I'm going to retract my shoulders. So I'm pushing my shoulders forward towards my hands, which is protraction. It's plank, it's crow, it's handstanding. I'm going to pull it back, and this is all like back bending if you're, a yoga enthusiast. So I'm protracting, then I'm retracting, I'm protracting, and then I'm retracting, and then I'm bringing the arms down. So 5 to start, 10 could be good. I'm a bigger fan of more frequency. So like morning, afternoon, and evening is better than, in my opinion, just a high rep. I mean, if you're a stronger person, a high rep is perfectly fine to do. So the last thing I'm going to show you is it's from the side. is I'm going to take the arms up into an overhead position, and I'm widening out, just like the Y position like we did earlier. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the arms straight back. And if you're new to this, just this is probably the position you're going to be in. You know, this is all that you really need to start. But if I do have the strength and the mobility in the shoulders, I'm going to take the arms out. And the good thing with the band, rather than a stick, it's a little bit less forgiving. You know, like if I was using a stick, you could do too much and hurt your shoulder. So I'm taking the band out to the sides. I'm bringing it forward. I'm taking it back, right, and down, taking it up, right. You can let the arms kind of move in, like let the tension out of the band, and then pulling it back in space, retracting, elevating, and then one more time pulling it back and up overhead and then down. Really basic, but a very good, you know, basic routine to help you with your shoulders. So I hope this helped you today. You could leave a comment, you could like, you could subscribe. It helps me build up more traffic for my channel, and I'd like to help more and more people through what I have experienced through yoga and self-care. So leave me a comment, leave me a message, send me a video if you need any help with anything. I'd love to help you more. All right, take care. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening if you are in a part of the world where it is evening. My name is Jon Witt, and this is a Hatha yoga class. So if you're new to yoga, have little experience with yoga, the good thing is that you have many outlets to help create a better, healthier practice. And if you're more experienced and you just need a lighter practice, like a practice that I'm going to use today, it's something that I would use to possibly warm up for something, or maybe on a day that I need to recover. So it's, I'm doing dynamic practices. I'm dynamic in practice most days, but you know, there's days that I'm not doing that every day. And that's what I love about more of like a healing practice is it'll help produce, you know, better longevity for you. And if that's the goal, right? Some of the most subtle techniques are probably going to be the best techniques for you. So you don't need a lot of props today. I'm going to use a block. I'm going to work on more thoracic extension and rotation. Really simple stuff, but it'll help with your posture. It'll help with you just living more vibrantly in your body. So how I'm starting today is I'm just going to be in this neutral stance. And then in a neutral stance, I'm just going to be bending the knees, but I'm going to lift the toes and lower the toes. So just lifting up through the toes. And you might just have the coordination of just keeping them up, and that's okay. But if you can lower them and lift them, fantastic. But as I'm lifting and lowering the toes, you'll notice that it's going to help in increasing the range of motion in your ankles. So I'm just lowering the toes and lifting them, lowering and lifting, and then I'm going to straighten the legs. I'm going to come up on the toes if I can. So if I'm using a wall, fantastic. If I'm using a chair, all very good. Just notice if the heels kind of fall in or if they fall out. You're wanting to keep the ankles from deviating, right? Some people have pronation, some people have supination, right? It really depends on what your feet do, is how you should be controlling your position. So I'm just going to lower the heels, and I'm going to take the arms out and do a wide position. My thumbs are up just so that you can see me better, but it could be something that you could use too so that you could see yourself. So I'm rotating the thumbs down. So this is internal rotation, and then I'm rotating back, which is external rotation. I'm rotating forward and down. I'm rotating back, I'm rotating forward and down. I'm rotating back. If it's just tightness, relax. Over time, you can use more effort in any of these positions and you can increase the range of motion. If you don't have a lot of body awareness, like if you have a tendency to hurt in positions, almost be lazy in your positions, and you'll probably be happier in your positions or your practice. So I'm going to take the arms back into rotation, and then I'm just going to bring the arms down. So I'm just going to rotate the shoulders back in space, and then I'm going to rotate them forward. Right, just moving the shoulders. Shoulder blades are moving up and they're moving down as you're moving your arms. I'm just going to rotate one arm forward and one arm back. So left arm is moving forward, right arm is moving back. And when you can't do something, you'll notice that you'll try really hard. It's okay that it's not perfect, and you don't have to be moving at a greater speed. I mean, if you wanted to move faster than I am, you certainly could do that. But if your tendency is to move really fast, it's probably more beneficial for you to learn how to slow down. So I'm going to rotate my right arm forward and my left shoulder back. Super basic, something that after a while, if you're not using it, it's going to become more and more difficult. So even though you might be good at it, it's always good maintenance. So I'm coming back into the middle. So I'm going to move a little bit through my hips just to swing the arms. So just so that I have a little bit more space, I'm going to move forward a little bit. So I'm just moving my pelvis to the right and to the left. And just start out really small, right? If you had a tear in your shoulder, you don't have to swing your arms, obviously. But in moving my pelvis forward and back, it'll help with your walking. The rotation in your torso, right? Because there's rotation when you walk. So if you're lacking rotation in your torso, it's going to affect the way that you walk. Right? It's a small rotation, but it is happening. All right, and then I'm coming back into the middle. When I'm back in the middle, I'm going to go back to the ankle pulses. So I'm going to bend the knees and lift the toes, and then I'm going to come up and flatten the toes. So I'm bending the knees, lifting the toes, then I'm straightening the legs and pushing down through the toes. I'm lifting the toes as I bend the knees, and it's a bit of coordination, and then back up, and then I'm flattening out the toes. Bending the knees. It doesn't have to be a big bend. This smaller bend in the knees, my toes are up, it'll increase the strength in your legs. So you don't really need a big bend in the legs to get your legs stronger. And you can straighten the legs and flatten the toes. So one more time, I'm going to bend the knees, lifting all 10 toes up. And I'm going to hold this, but I'm just going to lower the big toe and lift the big toe. So just the big toe is coming up and down. So more common that people have flat feet. And even if you had high arches, the lifting of the toes can be really, really great for softening up the plantar, which can get really tight for those of you that have supination. But in lifting and lowering the toes, it'll help with rebuilding the arches, and it'll help your ankles, it'll help your knees. I say this often, there's not a day that I don't strengthen my feet. Every day I'm doing something to strengthen my feet. So I'm going to have my hands behind me, I'm going to come up on the toes, and as I come up on the toes, I'm going to look over my right shoulder. And then in looking over my right shoulder, right, I'm trying to get my head not to tilt in any way, right, so that it's more even. Then I'm turning forward, and then I'm turning my head over my left shoulder. And then as I'm looking over, right, I'm trying to, not tilt my head. And you can take a picture of yourself as you do this, or videotape yourself, and you can see what you do. You can turn forward and you can lower the heels. So take the arms into a cactus position and just open and close the hands. So as you're opening and closing the hands, again, we can assume like, oh yeah, I can, I don't necessarily need this, but at some point, right, all of our fingers will need more manipulation. Same with your toes. So just opening and closing the hands. And then what I'm going to do is just flick my fingers, and the hands could be in any position. Say you don't want to have them here. You don't have to have them in this position, right? And then I'm going to take the arms all the way up overhead, trying to get the shoulders up towards the ears. So I'm going to hook my thumbs and bend my knees, and I'm bringing the weight into the heels of my feet. So as I'm bringing the weight into the heels of the feet, I'm extending up to the arms. So I'm trying to keep the ribs in, just as if I was in a handstand or a plank pose. If I'm not keeping my ribs in, I'm using my lower back to keep myself up, which isn't dangerous or a terrible thing to do, but it's just, keeping the ribs in will help create traction in your back. So just lift the toes up off the floor, bring the weight into the heels of your feet, and then straighten back up and come up on the toes again. So lift the heels, extend through the arms, and then lower the heels, and exhale, lower the arms back down. So I'm going to do a little bit more of the swinging of the arms. So I'm just turning, my left foot is forward. So if you're swinging or throwing a ball, it'll be that your left foot is forward. So if you're a right-handed person, your left leg is probably stronger in some ways because that's the foot that you're going to push through to throw the ball, right? But I'm going to swing the arm into a fuller range of motion. But if I was a person that really limited, in terms of tightness or a tear, right, make the motion smaller. But I'm going to bring it back in space. So I'm swinging it back, but notice when I'm taking it overhead, I'm turning my torso. So I'm not keeping my torso still. So my torso's moving. And then I'm going to bring the arm down. Just to stay on this side, I'm going to bring the right arm forward. So then it's swinging the arm forward. When it's going back again, see I'm turning, and then I'm coming forward and through. Really, really good for circulation. Say you lack of circulation in the arms or the hands. Very good for that. And then you can let the arm come down. I'm going to go over to the other side just so that you can see and that my right foot is forward now. So just letting the left arm move. Really, really beneficial if you're a right-handed person, is to get your left arm and the left side of your body to move more. So I'm just kind of moving it through space. My shoulders are moving, my chest is moving, and that's what's helping to, again, will help with the way that you walk. I'm a big, some of my practices is just basically working on improving the way that I walk. So I'm going to swing the left arm back in space. Again, as it goes back, turn the chest. As you're turning the chest, you don't want to keep your upper body completely squared or flush. And then I'm going to bring it down, and then I'm going to swing forward. So as I'm bringing it back, torso's turning. As I'm bringing it forward, the torso's moving slightly more forward. And then you can slow it down and I'm going to go back into moving the arms just to get the arms. But how well the arms move will affect how much you could do, say like a pose like wheel, or say like a position like a handstand, right? You have to be fully overhead for both of those positions. And then I'm going to bring the arms back into the middle. So I'm going to come down on my hands and my knees into an all-four position. So when you come down on your hands and your knees, you could, of course, pad the knees, but my hands are just underneath my shoulders. I'm going to push through the hands, and I'm going to protract my shoulders. I'm letting my chest move down in between my arms. I'm protracting the shoulders. I'm letting my chest move down in between my arms, and then I'm protracting the shoulders. And then I'm moving the weight forward a little bit, and then I'm rocking side to side. So if this is difficult for your hands, your wrists, turn your hands out a little bit, or they could be turned out all the way. Right? They don't have to be straight forward. If you want them forward, that works, but it can be a lot of stress for some people on the wrist. It's great to have the hands turned out. So I'm going to come back where I'm turning my hands in with this internal rotation. So my hands are, they're more like something like this as I'm on my hands. So as I'm turning my hands in, I'm going to be moving around in a circular motion. if I can, right? Make it really small, slow motion if you need it, and then circle around the opposite direction. And then as you're circling around, right, I'm moving around the circumference of my hand, right? The center of the palm has a little bit of a lift, so I'm moving around the bones on the periphery of the hand. And then I'm coming back into the middle, and I'm going to turn my hands, if I can, back towards my knees. And this could be just a moment, right? Just turning the hand forward. I'm turning it back. I'm turning it forward. I'm turning it back. So I'm going to turn the left hand forward, and I'm going to turn the right hand back, and then bringing it forward and back. Right, just that moment, good. It's going to help add the stretch. But I know very well that some people are really tight with something like this. So just a short hold can be a great start. And it's not that long holds are bad or that you shouldn't do them, but for a beginner, it might be too much for the hands. So I'm going to come up where my hands are underneath my shoulders. I'm going to make the stance longer, and I'm going to lift my knees off the floor. So I'm using my fingertips, and I'm moving the weight around just to kind of see how I hold my weight on my hands. Because you could be here for years and never test this, and you'll be like, oh, okay, that's why my right wrist hurts, or that's why my left hand hurts, because you may not know that you're having too much weight in one side. So come up into a down dog, pedal the legs out. As you pedal the legs out, it's just going to help in mobilizing the ankles, the hamstrings. If you're good in a static position, but I know very well that someone that's really tight, it's going to be more difficult to keep the body just in a static hold. If you have that flexibility, of course you should do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come forward and through my arms if I can. As I'm coming forward, I'm coming through. There's tension in my rear, my glutes. There's tension in my abdomen, my ribs. And then I'm going to pull back up into a down dog. So I'm pulling back up. I'm pedaling the legs. This is a straight arm transition. Doesn't require a lot of strength. You can move forward and through. And let's just say that your back hurts in this position. Put a block just above your thighs or just above your knees into your thighs. And then that'll be like you're on the floor. So I think Cobra, in my opinion, is less intrusive in the lower back. But up dog can be very good for people, right? So take it up into a down dog. Go all the way back up into a down dog. And then you're going to come forward and come down on your knees, and you can come down on your elbows for a plank on your forearms. So when I'm on my forearms, I'm going to push through the center of my forearm. I'm really pushing strong through the arms. So if you've ever done a long hold, you'll notice that you have ways where you're capable of relaxing, which is very good for your nervous system. If you want to get stronger, push strong through the arms and add more tension in the abdomen. So work a little bit stronger if it's a shorter hold, and then come down with the knees, come down with the thighs, the hips. I'm a strong person, but if I'm applying myself, my poses they're difficult to hold, and you should be getting somewhat tired in your positions. And if you're not, like I said, it's very good for your nervous system, but you're not going to get stronger in your positions as much as you would as if you're integrating. So I'm looking over the right shoulder. My left hip is moving forward in space. You might see the imbalances that you have by just turning the head. I'm going to look over the left shoulder, right? I'm trying to keep my right shoulder back in space. And then I'm going to turn forward, and I'm still trying to move forward. And this is a great position, but let's just say that your arms, you're not super happy in the pose. I think that's a great insight, is that you'll want to do the position differently. So there's a difference between good pain and, ow, I'm hurting myself. Very, very different. So what I'm going to do is come all the way down and bring my arms beside me, and I'm going to lift my chest, lift my feet up off the floor, and I'm going to open and close my hands again. I want my shoulder blades to move in. I'm using effort here not max effort. If I really wanted to use more effort, I'd use it for about 3 seconds, and then I'd let it, kind of calm down a little bit, and then I go back to using more effort, and then you can hold it longer and you'll get stronger from that. So come all the way down, have your hands relatively close to your shoulders, and lift yourself up off the floor, but try to get longer. Try to extend through your upper back. And let's just say you're good and you're like, oh, I want to hold this. You could certainly hold it, right? But I'm going to come down. And then as I come down, I'm still up, but my ribs are down. And then I'm going to bring myself up again. And I may be coming up higher, right? This is just a good way to explore greater depth. And I wish it would just be like, go up, go as high as you can. You'll have that flexibility tomorrow. It's just not that simple. I want to keep my hips down to create more of an extension in my thoracic. And then I'm going to come down. And let's say you're like, I love that first position. That's where you should be. Not everybody should be doing the same style of yoga. Everybody should make it more for what they really need on that given day, right? You don't want to be too rigid. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to come up one more time if I can. So I'm lifting up, I'm extending, but I'm going to change from being in the linear line. So I'm going to just kind of turn my left shoulder forward, right? My left shoulder is more forward than my right. And then I'm going to move my right shoulder forward and my left shoulder's back. Right? Just to add, you'd never see this in an ad, but moving in the position can actually be very good. You got to obviously know what your body's capable of. So I'm going to come forward, I'm going to come down. I'm trying to keep myself up, so this is like a negative, eccentric, and coming down, and then I'm all the way down, right? Have the hands just underneath the shoulders and press into the floor. So just feel the floor, and I've said this before in classes, the reason you can't do push-ups, it might be that you probably have enough strength, it's just you don't have the coordination to do it. So you're coordinating how much to push, then you can push up, right? But it might be that you just don't know how much to push, and when, like I said earlier, when you can't get the position, you'll probably try harder than you need to, and then you have that momentary flare where your body kind of gives out. But push-ups at the wall is a very good way to get you to push more, dips in a chair, stuff like that. Really, you may need some conditioning work to do transitions in yoga or calisthenics or body weight exercises, right? So I'm on my toes if I can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back where I'm going to sit back on my feet. So for flat-footed people, this is probably a better position. I like both. I grew up wrestling, so being on my knees in these positions has always been relatively easy because I started at a young age. I continued to do it as, almost 20. So I've always been able to keep this flexion in my knees. So I'm coming back where my hands are just underneath my shoulders. I'm going to protract through the shoulders and lift into like more of kind of like a crow, like a baby crow. But my knees are going to come off the floor. I'm going to push into my hands and then coming down. And I'm going to do this a few times. So you could obviously, if you have the strength to hold it for 20, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, something that I use in my handstand class. But I know that coming down is really good for people. So push through the hands, push through the feet, lift yourself up, get your ribs in, and then come back down. So just that moment, push, push, push really hard, lift yourself up. So press into the hands, protract through the shoulders, and then come back down with the knees. And say, you came up whatever level that is, it'll increase, right? It'll increase. So I'm going to step back into down dog. So go all the way back up into a down dog, pull back through the hips, reach down through the heels of the feet,
Right, I'm going to come forward and through into an up dog. Right, lift through the collarbone, lift through the sternum, lift through the pubic bone. And again, maybe you need to turn a little bit and go back up into a down dog. And then coming forward with the feet and then walking the hands back towards the feet. So if you have a history of herniation in your back, probably going to be better here in extension. And then you could stand, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into a forward bend where I'm going to round forward. So I'm rounding forward on purpose, and then I'm going to take my hands off the floor. So I'm rounding in my upper back, just as if I was in plow, right? This is the same position as plow. Then I'm coming up, curling up into standing. And if I'm a person that needs to stand, I have back pain, just stand, but work more on a posterior tilt. So bring your tailbone down, lift your pubis up, get really strong in your feet, and you could repeat these things that I'm going to do. I'm going to come down and forward a few times. So I'm bringing my chin into my chest. I'm coming forward. I'm rounding my back, right? And then I'm going to change the angle a little bit. So I'm off to my right side. I'm going to round my back here and slowly roll myself up where I'm up. So again, the body has an ability of obviously side bending, twisting. It's just I'm doing it in a forward bend, so there's a greater leverage. So one more time, I'm going to bring my chin in my chest, rounding, rounding, rounding. And you might be like, oh, that's exactly the angle that I need. Then you stay, right? But you can keep coming, and then all the roundings in my upper back, not my lower back. Then I'm going to my left foot with my left hand. I'm rounding and rounding and rounding. Bend the knees more if you need to. And then roll yourself up. And then you're up into standing. So just a different angle can really change a lot about it. Again, if you have an injury, good practice, protect yourself. But then over time, you can move beyond what you have. Like I'll meet people and they'll say, oh, I have a herniation. I'll say, well, when did you get that scan? And they'll say, oh, I got it like 20, 30 years ago. You may not have that same herniation, So I wouldn't always, you can heal a herniation. I'm not saying that you don't have an herniation, but at some point you can move beyond what your body used to be experiencing. So I'm just going to side bend to my right side. My left side is stretching. So from my left hip into my ribs, into my chest. Super, super basic, right? Use more effort for a few seconds, and then you might be like, oh, it was better to be relaxed. Then bring yourself up, and then you can side bend to the left. As you side bend to the left, you're trying to get the right side, manipulate the right side. Just kind of see where the weight's in the feet. You might need more weight in your heels. I'm gonna try to use more effort here on the right. And then I'm bringing myself back up. So when I'm up, I'm going to do some thoracic extensions. These are very good. You just need your hand into your chest. So my chin and my hand are in contact, and the base of my hands in my chest. So it really depends on how large your hand is. But it's to keep your head neutral. That's what the exercise is for. That's what the hand is for. Is that I'm bringing my back into flexion, right? But I'm only using my thoracic to extend. I'm lifting, lifting, lifting. I'm rounding. Rounding my back. And maybe your motion isn't as much as mine, forward. And then I'm extending, tailbone's down, pubic bone's lifting. I want to keep my head in contact with my hand so that I'm not using my neck to do the exercise. Only my thoracic. So I'm lifting, I'm extending. I'm doing these pretty slow. They could be faster as you get more familiar with them. So I'm rounding, right? I'm lifting one last time, and I'm extending up. So I'm going to twist. When I twist, same thing as I'm going to use my left hand just to change it up. I'm going to twist to my left. So as I'm twisting to my left, my right hip is back. I'm only twisting through my upper body, my thoracic. If I turn my head, maybe it's your neck that's twisting you, which is not incorrect. It's just how much are you really twisting from your thoracic? And you can turn forward and then you can twist to the right. And at some point you could certainly move your head beyond your hand. Of course, that's good. But it's really nice to be a little bit more accurate in adjusting the upper back. And then I'm coming back into the middle. So I'm bringing the arm down. So I'm going to come down on the floor. I'm going to do some stuff on the floor. You'll need a yoga block, just some bridging. But if you don't have it, you just don't have it. You could use a book. You don't need a yoga block. But when I'm down, I'm going to have my hands, I'm going to be on my back completely. So as I'm on my back, I'm going to bring my lower back into the floor, and the block's just up over my chest. So I'm slowly taking the block overhead, and at any range of motion, it's like, wow, this is tight. That's a great angle to work on. You don't have to be full extension, but if it's like, no, I really need a full extension, of course you could do that. But keep the ribs in, keep the lower back down and in, and keep squeezing into the block, right? And then taking the block straight up over your chest one more time. And then bringing the block over. Again, there's many angles that I think are great. Like right here is a very good angle for me. And then as I go overhead, it's just different. It's just a different kind of exposure into my chest and into my shoulders. And then I'm bringing it up one more time. And then just let the shoulders retract. And then protract the shoulders. One more time, take the block overhead. Straight up, and then bringing it down over, all the way. And if my arms are down, in some ways it's actually easier. So when you're suspended off of, the floor, the arms weigh more, right? So they'll add more extension. Then you can bring the arms back up. Now I'm going to switch over so that the block is just in my right hand, and my left leg is straight, and then I'm rolling to my left side, and I'm coming to my left elbow, and then I'm coming back down, right? I'm going to roll to my left elbow and up, and then I'm rolling back down. So what I was talking about when I was swinging the arms earlier, you need rotation in the upper body, just for simple walking, right? One more time, I'm going to come up, strengthen your abdomen, and come up onto your hand. As you come up onto your hand, push through your left hand, push through your right foot. If you wanted to lift your hips off the floor, you certainly could do that. You don't have to. And then, if I was lifting a heavy weight, I'd want it directly over my shoulder, right? If my weight is off line in my shoulder, the potential that the weight could fall on me is greater, right? So I'm slowly bringing the hips down, slowly going to the left elbow, really, really slow here, and then onto your back. So just think about which way you get out of bed. You may always roll the same way. That side's going to get really strong, and the other side's going to get really weak. So you could, practice rolling up on the other side, just so that you can see me better. I'm switching sides. You don't have to, but my block is in my left hand now. My right leg is straight, squeezing the block. I'm going to roll to my right side and then slowly coming up to my right elbow. I'm right-handed. I roll out of bed on my right side. It's much easier. I'm rolling onto my back. Then I'm going to roll to my right side, to my right elbow. Right. Slowly rolling to the right shoulder. Abdomen is in. One more time, rolling to the right, up on the elbow, rolling back onto the right shoulder. And maybe you only did one or two, right? Roll to the right side, lift, keep lifting up onto the hand. The hand doesn't have to be right underneath the shoulders. You probably need it wider than the shoulder, further back. push through the right hand, push through the left foot, lift yourself up. And then as you're pressing here, you try to get the weight in a part of your hand that you don't necessarily have that weight. If it's all in one part of the hand, you can turn the hand, you can move the hand, right? But it might be too much weight. So it could, hurt you. So I'm gonna bring my hips down, slowly going to my right elbow, slowly going to my right shoulder, and then I'm back down. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come into a bridge, just a yoga bridge. I'm just having my feet underneath my knees, my hands are over my elbows, pulling the shoulders back, and I'm gonna lift the hips off the floor. And this is something that you've probably obviously done before if you're a yogi, but you can see the difference in the rotations. That's my point, is that as you rotate better, it'll be easier to extend, it'll be easier to breathe. So push through the heels of the feet, and then slowly bring the upper back into the floor. Bring the mid back down. So if you're not doing plow, you can experience that same kind of transition in a bridge, to get the spine to move. That's why I like these. I'm gonna lift through my pelvis, but I'm really trying to lift more and more through my spine. And there's a difference. Not that you shouldn't lift through your hips. Of course you should lift through your hips. But if I'm only lifting through my hips, then there's gonna be more of an emphasis on my lower back. So when say you back bend and you have pain in your back, it might be that you're just getting too much leverage in one area of your back and not enough in others. So slowly roll your upper back into the floor, your mid back comes down, and then your low back comes down. So I want to give you something basic just in case you can't do what I'm going to do next. So it's kind of similar to what I did earlier, but it's probably going to require more strength for you. So if you don't have a lot of strength and you just want to be passive in your back bend, just put yourself on a block. This is so good. This is a great position. Just from all that we've done, this should feel pretty good for most people. I could still be active here. I'm trying to get my tailbone to move down. I could try to increase the capacity of my breathing. And it's good to just be totally zenned out and relaxed. That has its place. But if you really want to change things, you are integrating, you are practicing, different types of techniques. But if you're up for moving a little bit more, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my hips down and my right arm is out to the right. So I have a background in wrestling, there's a lot of different warm-ups we would do. And I'm incorporating more of them just so that people get more diverse in practice. So I'm not bridging on my head, but I'm going to bridge on my shoulders. My right arm is out to the right. I'm lifting, I'm reaching my left arm out to the left. So some guy's on top of me and he's trying to pin me or get points, right? I have to learn how to roll over. It's very good for your back. If you don't want the pressure in your head's off the floor as you do this, and you can come down. Just going to do 2 more to the right. So I'm lifting my hips. I'm pressing the back of my right shoulder to the floor, and I'm trying to reach my left hand beyond my right. So then I'm back onto my back. Right, I'm coming down. It's kind of nice to relax in between. I'm not thrusting. I'm not throwing myself up. I'm controlling, going out to the right, reaching my left arm out to the left, and then I'm coming back down, and then I'm all the way down. So again, I could be in bridge. I'm going to do the other side. I have a wall next to me, so I can't be on that side. So when I'm here, and maybe it's a partial motion, which I really believe in. Like if I'm doing some of it, right? I'm coming over to that side, which is great, right? But if I'm pushing through that shoulder and then I'm reaching my left hand beyond my right hand beyond my left, then I'm coming back onto my back. And then I'm lifting my hips, reaching my right hand beyond my left and back down. And again, if you're exhausted, you're like, no way, I don't want to do another one. the beauty of it is you don't have to do it. So I'm lifting my hips, I'm reaching my right hand beyond my left, and then I'm coming back down and I'm rolling my back. And I've known for years, there's a lot of things that I know that could really help people, and people would say, well, it's not yoga, and it isn't, in some ways, but if it's useful, why wouldn't you use it? And that's why I'm using more and more of my diverse background in terms of how it can help people. So go back into lifting up into a bridge. So I'm pulling my shoulders back. I'm lifting the hips. So much easier to lift here. Like if you think of like wheel, that's such a difficult position for most people. What I've used in today's class will definitely help get you closer to it. Will it give you the pose? No, it won't give you the full pose, but it'll get you closer, and eventually you can do it where you're thriving. Right? So I'm going to come back down, my hips on the block. So when I'm bringing my hips on the block, I'm now on the second level, but I could certainly be on the low level. Right? I'm going to stretch my left leg forward and then stretching my left arm overhead. So I have, I still have some development that I'd like to produce in my left hip. So when I stretch out my left side, I'm getting the exposure that I need, right, for my hip and for my back. So I'm bringing my left arm down and my left leg in. I'm going to stretch my right leg forward. And I just do this for people so that they can test and they can understand their body better. But it might be better that you have both legs forward, straight forward. You could certainly do that. I'm going to stretch my right arm overhead and reaching through my right foot, my right leg, and my right arm is reaching up. And I'm just going to get more exposure on my right side. You feel good today? It's probably going to feel great to do both. But if you have an imbalance, like a noticeable imbalance, you have some scoliosis, you'll be like, oh, okay, now I know how to adjust myself. And that's a great thing to understand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press my feet down on the floor, and I'm going to lift my heels up off the floor, so I'm lifting a little bit higher. And I could bring a block, on the highest level if I want it. And when you're going into higher ranges of motion, higher ranges, you don't necessarily have to hold it for, say, like you read it in a book or a magazine or you heard it in a class, right? What I would do is I'd set a timer, and then when you're like, if it's been over 3 minutes, I would certainly come out for the, if you're just learning it. But you might be like, at a minute, you might be like, I think I need to come out. Well, then you come out. But if you did it more frequently, then you could build up more time in the position. So like, if you did plank like for 20 seconds, morning, afternoon, and evening, that will help build you up to a minute, right? Because you're getting more practice in, rather than just gutting it out and doing that minute. As an example, so I'm going to bring my hips off the block. I'm going to bring my hips, my upper back into the floor as I did before. And then my mid back, and then my low back, and my pelvis, and I'm down. And then I'm just going to take my legs into a happy baby position. So I'm just taking my knees out wide. I'm squeezing my legs in. So this is an easy happy baby. I'm pushing my legs in. But if you do have a history of herniation, you probably don't want to round after you do your yoga. Like after you do your back bend, you don't need a counter. You just want to just go and doing whatever position you're going to be in. But it's really common in yoga that you counter, and not everybody should counter after a back bend. I'm going to bring my feet in, and then I'm going to bring my hips down. So I'm letting my hips relax down. I'm pushing my thighs out, driving my legs apart. Right, take a few deep breaths here. Breathe in, breathe out. You may need to lean to one specific side to adjust the hips. And then I'm going to come back down with the feet. I'm going to bring the knees in. Just going to let the knees kind of fall in. And, typically don't teach a relaxation in these classes. Let's say you're like perfect. You're ready to rest. I just stay down on the floor. I'm going to finish up in a seated position just so that I finish the class in seated so I can talk. But you could stay here. This is great. You could roll to one side. You could use your hands. You could bring yourself up. And then when you come up, I'm going to sit cross-legged. And then as I'm sitting cross-legged, just trying to squeeze my legs into the middle. I'm pushing the outsides of my feet to the floor just so that it's more hip related. You know, if my feet sickle, it can affect the knees. So I'm just lifting more and more through the front of my body. And I'm going to side bend to the right. And as I side bend to the right, my left arm is out to the left. And I'm just kind of out to the side here to expose the outside of my hip and of my lower back. And, you know, you can be moving the whole time. You could be static. If you're static, if you like static holds, change the angles and be static. But don't always stay in the same angle. Eventually it won't benefit you as much. Bring yourself up, and then you can recross the legs. And then as you recross the legs, you can take the left hand to the left side, the right hand's out to the right. And then as you're off to the side, you know, again, finding the angle, letting the head relax down if that's something that you need. Take a few deep breaths here, right? Nice and easy. So, you know, this great position up against the wall or up against a piece of furniture. So good for posture. And then you can bring yourself back up. And then when you come up, just going to have my hands on my knees or my palms up. And then as I'm sitting, I'm trying, you know, a lot of it is awareness. You know, using your awareness, how you sit, how you stand, how you walk, how you do your yoga. A big part of it is developing an awareness so that you can make your practice better. So it's not so much, you know, skill or coordination. I mean, that's some of it. But a lot of it is heightening your awareness. So I hope you had a great class today. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share my information with people that you think would benefit from my services. All my information is on my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. So if you'd like to make a donation, you can do it through Venmo or PayPal. But say you can't afford yoga, continue to take the classes, right? That's why I'm doing it this way, so that I can support more and more people during this time. I hope you're well. I have a class tomorrow morning, and that's at 9:30 Eastern time. And that's through Zoom, so you register for that class through my website if you'd like to take class tomorrow. And all my Zoom classes are through registered base. You'd have to register for those classes. All right, have a beautiful weekend. Take care. Hope to see you soon.